Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Zenton, and welcome to today's video in Legends of Runeterra. We're going to be going over the upcoming patch 1.6, Spirit Blossom. If you guys haven't seen one of these videos from me, quick summary. I basically go through the patch notes, read them out, and give a quick overview of what I think of each and every single change, specifically the card changes, what I think this will do for the meta, and what I try to give a prediction on what I think is going to happen. As for the meta itself, as for decks that are getting nerfed, decks that don't get touched, and so on and so forth. So, with that all said and done, let's get right into it. So, patch 1.6 notes, Spirit Blossom. Let's see here. Step into the Spirit Realm. Spirit Blossom Festival begins. Patch 1.6 also contains the latest card balance updates, that's what we care about, as well as a new board and our very first deck bundle available in the store. Real quick, let's read the dev notes. When designing and balancing LoR, we strive to set players up to dictate the metagame by giving them a variety of tools to adapt to and solve novel challenges. While we're seeing a healthy range and diversity of different decks being played, certain pervasive archetypes, elusives, Ionia control, Heimerdinger, Noxus-based aggro, have proven too consistently powerful in a way that's limiting meaningful decision making both in and out of the game. I heavily agree with this. Left unchecked, this restricts deck building choices, crowding out poorly positioned strategies and inhibiting players' abilities to adapt over time. Several of the changes you'll see below are targeted at powering down these archetypes in specific ways. Most of these changes are also nerfs, by the way. There's some buffs, but they're mostly just nerfs. Where was I? Ah, yes. While we generally reserve nerfs for decks that cross win rate thresholds, this patch we're making adjustments to cards and strategies that may not be statistically overpowered, but represent pervasive health risks. By weakening them, we hope to unlock a wider range of consistently viable archetypes. I do like this. It's like they're trying to take preemptive action and measures to prevent certain decks from just becoming extremely degenerate and just destroying the meta. So I like this decision they're making. So where were we? Yes. In a similar vein, this patch also includes tweaks to several discard units aimed at increasing their satisfaction and usability and providing a more varied foundation for the archetype. Let us know what you think. I think the issue with discard is the discard payoff isn't that good at the moment, but we'll see, right? So before we get to the card updates, we got this, the Spirit Blossom Festival, which I'll be honest with you, I'm a little hyped for. Starts tomorrow, July 22nd, which should be actually the current day this video goes up. Patch 1.6 brings with it the Spirit Blossom Festival, a month-long thematic experience featuring a new lab, event pass, special quests, and a ton of personalization items. And then for all the details, check out the dedicated preview article. I'm not going to be reading that on video, by the way. This video is purely for the balance patch, the patch notes. But to go through it quickly, we'll get a new lab. The new lab looks pretty nice from the video we've seen. More cosmetics, that's nice, and a event pass, season pass, whatever you want to call it. And on August 5th, we'll get 2 more epic quests and a new Spirit Blossom items in the store. Seems nice. But enough of that. Let's get to what we all want to see, the card changes. First up, we got Heimerdinger. You either love this guy or you hate this guy. He's been terrorizing the meta. So, to change him and to try to fix the problem, Heimerdinger now, they've reworked the turrets. They've shuffled them around, if you will. Now at 3 mana, instead of giving an elusive turret, they're giving a fearsome turret. At 4 mana, instead of giving the fearsome turret, you're getting an overwhelmed turret. And as you can see down here, at 6 mana, you now get a 6/1 elusive turret instead of an overwhelmed turret. It's pretty good, I think. I like this change. Let's see what they have to say real quick. Elusive was a particularly decisive keyword for Heimerdinger to have access to at 3 mana, creating frustrating gameplay when spammed and giving Heimerdinger decks too much speed and consistency in executing an often uninteractive win condition. we've adjusted several of Heimer's turrets to more smoothly escalate his ability to create evasive threats and to better incentivize casting more expensive spells. So first thing when I see the change, specifically 6 mana elusive turret, my mind immediately goes to Heimerdinger Lux. Lux decks build their decks up with 6 mana spells. A 6/1 elusive is really good. Sure, I'd say overall this is a nerf to Heimerdinger. It's technically a rework, like a soft rework, if you will. It's not like a hard rework where they completely changed the guy. They just shifted around the turrets a little bit. But I'd say overall it is weaker. Obviously, you would rather have a elusive over a fearsome at 3 mana, but a 6/1 elusive does end the game fast. Sure, it's still a 6/1 like all the other turrets, so it will die easily, but if they can't answer it, that's going to be a problem. Still, though, that's all I can think of. Heimerdinger Vi, though, I believe is dead. Between this and some other nerfs we'll see further on, I think Heimerdinger Vi is going to be non-existent from here on out. Next up, though, we got one of my favorite cards from the previous patch, Brahm. I loved Anivia Rekindler. I agree with this nerf, even though you hate to see it because I hate to see it because I love Brahm Anivia. Not a big nerf. He's losing 1 power. He's going back to a 0/5. That is not that big of a nerf because he's still getting the Poro, and that is the main reason why Brahm is so good at the moment. Sure, he can't, like, just chip things down. Also, he can't kill elusives or something. So it's a little bit of a nerf, don't get me wrong, but the fact that he still gives the Poro the first time he's damaged is all that really matters. But it is a nerf, don't get me wrong. It's like, it's not a non-existent nerf, like a nerf only in name. Let's see what they have to say, though. Overall, we're pretty happy with the results of the Brahm rework in patch 1.4. Same here. Together with the changes to Anivia in 1.4, they provided more viable Freljord champion options and made the region more generally playable. They did say that is what they were hoping to accomplish with the Brahm Anivia buffs. And I'd say they succeeded, because before that, the only Freljord champions you usually saw were like Sejuani and Ashe, I'd say. When making the changes to Brahm, we did err on the side of pushing his power level to make sure his rework was definitely an upgrade and leave ourselves room for adjustment if he proved too powerful. Sounds like they're trying to do the League strategy, which is, I've heard this is what they do in League. Make something really, really OP and strong, and then rein it in and nerf it, because they've said it's easier to nerf cards than to buff it into playability, which the reasoning they give is, it's solid, it's solid statements, I'd say. They make good arguments. In particular, wait, where was I? Whatever. In particular, Brahm's 1 power baseline led to a certain very sharp matchups while providing strong all-around value. So we're moving his base power back to 0 and reducing it at level 2 to make him less capable of immediately seizing control of games. The good news is he still has his power when he levels up. If I remember correctly, old Brahm, 3 mana Brahm, didn't even have power when he leveled up too, so it's still nice that he has power when he levels up. Obviously, again, it's a nerf, it's sad, but I think Brahm Anivia should still exist, along with the next nerf, which I believe is Anivia? Yeah, Egg Nivea. Not a big nerf, not really much to digest here. The egg, Anivia herself is unchanged, but the egg itself is going down to 1 health. 1 health is very, very fragile in this game. Between things like Vile Feast, Static Shocks, and Withering Wail, 1 health is really fragile. So it's going to be much tougher for the egg to actually live. Still, though, this doesn't affect the core of the deck between Miscalls, if you play Miscalls in your variant, Harrowings, if you play Harrowings in your variants, and Rekindlers. So between this and the Brahm nerf, I think Anivia Brahm is definitely going to be weaker, and I feel like it will still be a solid tier 2 deck, but it's going to be a meta call now, but I think it will be a good deck still. Let's see what they say. Anivia and the Freljord are in a better spot since her changes in 1.4, but like Brahm, we want to follow up our initial changes in the interest of long-term gameplay health. At our new lowered cost, copy Anivia strategies are significantly easier to pull off, which we want to better balance with increased fragility and opportunities for counterplay, particularly for slower decks looking to interact by removing Anivia. Sure. You got it, Rito. Next up, This one's basically just a nerf in name. I said this earlier about nerfs in name only. Like, yeah, this thing is a nerf, but barely. Relentless Pursuit. 3 mana spell, rally. Used to be a fast spell, now it's a slow spell. Nothing much to talk about here. Doesn't really change much, again. Let's see what they say. We've actually wanted to make this change for some time. Rally is generally intended as a slow speed effect, but it is a nerf regardless of design intent, and other Demacia changes have previously taken precedence. English is hard, okay? Don't bully me. Relentless Pursuit is already very often cast at slow speed. I was about to say, like, that's what I was going to say. And it could be overly potent or confusing when used in response to a round opening spell or unit play effect or during combat. So yeah, like, this card is always almost played at slow speed, so it's not really a change. Like, yeah, obviously it's a nerf, but it's barely going to matter, in all honesty. You can't just be like, oh, I'll just rally in response to this vengeance or something. So yeah, again, whatever. Demacia, specifically, like, aggressive Bannerman Demacia, we'll still run this. Like, Lucian Senna aggressive Bannerman Demacia still runs this card. Next up, though, we got the first of the discard buffs, Arena Bucky. It's now a 2-mana 2/2. Used to be a 3-mana 3/1. This is actually really big to go down a mana cost and to get health. Its total stats are still the same, except now it's cheaper and it's more tough. It's harder to remove. Again, like I was saying earlier with the egg from Anivia, going up from 1 health or going down to 2 health or 1 health is huge. Not dying to Static Shock, Withering Wails, Vile Feast, etc., etc., Parlays, Make It Rains. There's a bunch of pings in the game. Not dying to those is crazy good. Now, is this card good enough in the game? Who knows? I'm not really a discard player playing things like Jinx and Dravens and such, but I've been seeing people testing them out, and they look pretty decent so far from what I've seen. Let's see what they say, though. With the adjustments to other Noxus 2-drops and some Dredger's cost change, all detailed below, we'll see them later, don't worry. Arena Bucky now is a much more realistic home at 2 mana and is an opportunity to give Noxus some more power with more synergy-driven strategies. So, the one issue with Arena Bucky has always been that you can't really control it that easily. Like, it's always going to discard your lowest card. Sometimes you don't want to cast your lowest card, and you don't want to discard it. Maybe it's like a Mystic Shot, or you get excited and you're trying to save those for removal. Arena Bucky will force you to use them or discard them. It's kind of sad, right? So, I still don't feel like this card is going to be played in Constructed. It's just a little too much work, and it's asking you to jump through a lot of hurdles, and the payoff isn't that good. And plus, it's still easy to remove even though it got an extra health. Next up, what do we have? Basilisk Rider. If you've been playing the game, you know about this guy. He's still fine, in all honesty. This buff, or this nerf, sorry, is not really changing him that much. Basilisk Rider, 4 mana, 4/3, gets +1/+1. He has 1 less power now. It used to be a 5/3 that when he got Allegiance to go off, got +1/+1 Overwhelm. Now he's only a 4/3. That's fine. So now instead of being a 6/4 when he gets his Allegiance with Overwhelm, he's only a 5/4. Again, that's very minuscule of a nerf, obviously. It's definitely a nerf. Less power is almost always a nerf, except for thinking about certain cards that don't really, like Culling Strike, but they're not really that prevalent, in all honesty. Like, Culling Strike's prevalent, but doesn't affect this. Let's see what they have to say. While we like that Overwhelm-based Noxus decks are in a better spot, Basilisk Rider is simply overperforming since the bump to its health in 1.4. I agree. Seeing a Basilisk Rider on 4 on curve has always been terrifying, especially because I'm more of a controlled kind of player. Basilisk Rider, blah, 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 blah. We're making a follow-up adjustment to rein in some of its newfound strength. I mean, look, it's a nerf to Noxus Harrowing aggro. I really don't like playing against this deck, or that deck. I'll take it, okay? Next up, though, another nerf to the Noxus Harrowing deck, and Noxus in general, really. This card is probably one of the most prominent Noxus cards you see in the game, Crimson Disciple. There's been a lot of argument about over how to nerf this card. Most people were saying this card is definitely going to get nerfed. It needs to get nerfed. If it doesn't get nerfed, it's Rito is being dumb, and they went and nerfed it. Some people argued make it a 1-3. Some people said like make it a 3-mana 3-3. Other people said make it a 2-2. Other people said to go and make it so it deals less damage. They went with the latter, and they have decided to make it deal only 1 damage when it survives damage instead of dealing 2 damage. That's good. I think that's probably the best nerf they could have chosen from all the obvious nerfs that doesn't kill the card. Sure, burn decks do a little bit less damage now with like the Imperial Demolitionist. Now it only deals 3 damage instead of 4 damage with that combo. But the thing about Crimson Disciple is it's a 2-mana 2-3, which is already good stats for the cost, and its ability is also really good. And the stat line is really nice too. 2-3 blocks really well against 1-drops, except for maybe the Plunder guy, the Butcher, really. I think that's his name, the 1-mana 2-2 that plunders to get +1/+1. I always forget his name. Let's see what they have to say here. Several cheap Noxus units are both effective plays on curve and have Nexus damage effects that make them powerful reach tools in the late game. This lets Noxus get ahead early while following up with a ton of closeout potential. It's very annoying too to play against. Providing a level of consistency that places significant strain on the rest of the metagame. By weakening some of this late game damage potential, we hope to unlock other strategies by giving them more breathing room in stabilizing versus Noxian aggression. Crimson Disciple is a particular culprit, and reducing her damage output should both allow more favorable exchanges when interacting and reduce her combo potential. We've also reduced Legion Grenadier's Nexus damage with similar intent, while also buffing its health to provide additional flexibility. Here we can see him. He's now a 2-mana 3-2 instead of a 3-1. But now instead of dealing 2 when he dies, he only deals 1 when he dies. Still kind of honestly a little scary that he doesn't die to pings, specifically Withering Wail. Withering Wail doesn't feel that good anymore against Noxus aggro, but whatever. What do I know? So yeah, this is this is nice to see the nerf specifically to Crimson Disciple. As for the Grenadier, it's not really a nerf, it's more of a side grade. It brawls and fights better, and it can definitely take some damage, and it can be hit by a transfusion and not die now, so that's nice. But sometimes you want this guy to die to transfusion because you want to kill it to deal that last little bit of damage. So definitely a side grade in my opinion for the Grenadier. Excuse me, I bit my tongue. Crimson Disciple though is definitely a nerf. So yeah, the nice thing about the Crimson Disciple nerf though is now you can actually block Crimson Disciple with like a 1-1 or a 2-2 or something, and you're actually blocking damage. It used to be block Crimson Disciple, sure, you're dealing some damage to her, but she's still getting 2 damage through. It's like you didn't block her at all. Now you block her with like a 1-1, she only gets 1 damage through, and you usually block with 1-1s and 2-2s to ship her down to make sure the Crimson Disciple isn't that good of a target for transfusion anymore. So you can't, like, your opponents can't use transfusion on Crimson Disciple because she has 1 health because they'll kill the Crimson Disciple or something. Something like that. I could talk about playing around transfusion all day. Okay. Next up, though, we got Flash of Brilliance. You thought the Heimerdinger hate train was over? No, it's still here. This one is a huge nerf, in all honesty. The Heimerdinger specifically. Used to be you could go and be like, okay, Heimerdinger on 5, Flash, and then hold up Twin Disciplines. Now you can't do that anymore. Second off, even if you could do that, Heimerdinger doesn't even make elusives anymore at 3 mana. So you're actually having to spend mana now with Flash because it now costs 4. I don't think the card is completely dead. You're not going to see this card too much because the one other deck I think you play this in is Lee Sin. And maybe like Submersible decks, but this card, a little too much. Just a little too much. I don't know. Who knows though? I really do think this will only see playing Lee Sin and Submersible decks maybe. As for what they say though, in the past we've adjusted Flash of Brilliance to make it more satisfying and effective when used with Heimerdinger. If you didn't know because you weren't here playing the game or something, or you just don't remember, Flash of Brilliance used to create just a random spell instead of creating a random 6-cost spell. Where was I though? The potential to create multiple free 3/1s, regardless of keyword, without window for interaction has proven to be an environment warping effect over time. This change means Flash will always have a cost and adjust how it interacts with Heimerdinger's new turret progressions. creating overwhelmed turrets that allow greater opportunities for counterplay through blocking. Again, like I said earlier, I think between this and the Heimerdinger changes, Heimerdinger Vi is dead. Plus, there's another Ionia change we'll see a little further up. Maybe it's next, in fact. Nope, we got Sump Dredger, another one of the discard card changes. Sump Dredger is going up to 3 mana. Don't get me wrong, that's obviously bad. Increased cost is bad. However, they have changed the effect. It's now no longer to play him, you gotta discard a card. His effect is really good now, in fact. It is to play this guy, you gotta discard, and then you get to draw one. In fact, that's really good. From other card games where you see this kind of ability, like Magic, where this is a prominent thing in Magic the Gathering, this is a very powerful effect. Plus, a 3-mana 4/3, that's fine. In terms of stats, people still play Badger Bears. Now, granted, 4/3 is a lot worse than a 3/4, but Badger Bear is literally just a 3/4, nothing else. Sump Dredger, sure, like I said, the stat line of 4/3 is worse than 3/4 because of how removal lines up, but the ability more than makes up for it, in my opinion. Now, the problem is, what deck wants this ability, and what deck wants this card in it? Draven aggro? I don't know. The 3 slot is a little crowded with Draven himself. Casino maybe wants this, but again, the problem also with Draven Draven aggro and Jinx aggro and Casino, this isn't really helping you empty your hand anymore because it's just drawing. Now, that's good, don't get me wrong, that's a much better ability, but sometimes you just want to empty your hand, and this will draw you into another card you have to play and basically delay you emptying your hand for 1 turn. So it's not, while it is a buff, it is not necessarily always better than the old guy. Let's see what they say, though. This new pattern for Sump Dredger and Zonite Urchin, yeah, we can scroll down and see Zonite Urchin got the same treatment. She's still a 1-mana 2/1 player, discard 1, draw 1. That's a really good one, though. This provides more satisfying usability and gives discard decks access to more consistent card flow. It also provides P and Z decks overall with more diverse options for card selection. I have run into a lot of people who have been testing out new decks because I'm currently in Masters. Most people in Masters don't really care about their rank unless they're really, really high and just grinding for really, really high ranks. Just, feed the LP. I've seen a lot of people just testing around new decks in anticipation for when the patch goes live. I've seen a number of people testing out Jinx Draven aggro, and while it seems strong, I don't know if it's tier 1 strong. I didn't see anyone playing Sump Dredger yet, but I did see a lot of people playing Zonite Urchin, and sure, it's the old Zonite Urchin with the whole Last Breath thing, but she felt really strong, and I'm honestly a little worried about Jinx Draven discard aggro. Now, granted, I was also messing around with my own kind of brews too, like Lux stuff as well, so who knows? Other brewers and other deck builders will figure it out, not me. Next up, though, we got a nerf that people have been asking for a long time, Shadow Assassin. One of, if not the most played Ionia card, Shadow Assassin, 3-mana 2/2. It's now 3-mana 1/2. Before I get too much into it, let's see what they said. Shadow Assassin has been a near auto-include across many Ionia decks for some time as a consistent utility piece, providing card advantage, defense, and the ability to steal games with elusive attacks. She provides significant power and resilience to elusive strategies, while also being an ideal tool for slower Ionia decks, and is ultimately overrepresented in a way that's limiting options. This change preserves... Sorry, English is hard again. This change preserves some of her aforementioned strengths while lowering her aggressive output. I've seen a lot of people say this card is dead. I do not think this card is dead at all. I think this card is dead for aggressive, elusive decks, and I kind of feel bad for Kinku Elusives. Their 3-mana, 3-drop unit selection now is a little lackluster. You have Nerf Shadow Assassin and Nerf Solitary Monk, both of which are... it's okay. But I think for like Ionia-based control decks, they'll still play this because it's a 3-mana 1/2, so it survives some small pings and small units. Elusive helps, it blocks and buys time against elusive threats, and it draws a card. That's the biggest thing, is 3-mana 1/2, draw a card. People love cantrips. People love units that say, draw a card, especially if they're aggro players. Now, granted, yes, at 3 mana, you're starting to get to a expensive amount of mana just to draw 1 card from a unit. But I think the fact that Shadow Assassin is elusive, so she can chump block elusives and buy time against elusives, still makes it so she can be played in control decks to slow down elusive threats, and just that she can chump block is nice. Plus, also, like, she helps out if you're playing some weird, like, plunder deck. She helps you plunder, which there's not really that many plunder decks that play Ionia, in all honesty. But hey, they might show up. Who knows in the future what Runeterra holds for us. But yeah, like we've seen in other games, 2-mana 1/1s draw cards have been played. I can't remember the name, but there's the elf in Magic it's like Elvish Visionary or something. 2-mana 1/1 draw a card. Now, granted, that's an elf, so the typing matters, but whatever. Next up, though, what have we got here? We got Steel Tempest. Steel Tempest, not much to talk about here. It's going from 3 mana to 2 mana. The only decks that really played Steel Tempest were Yasuo decks, and even then they didn't really play it that much. Most of the time, if you saw a Steel Tempest from a Yasuo deck, it was an actual Yasuo champ spell. So I'm not sure if this is going to be enough. You sometimes saw a Steel Tempest played in, what's it called? Heimerdinger decks, and then Concussive Palm came out. This is the issue with Steel Tempest, is Concussive Palm is almost always better than Steel Tempest. So really, this is just a buff for Yasuo decks, and specifically Steel Tempest that comes from Yasuo. 3 to 2 mana, meh. Let's see what they say. We want to give Ionian synergy cards some love in the wake of core region nerfs and make Steel Tempest a more appealing option for control and stun-based Ionia decks. Again, like I said, this is only for Ionia. So, you probably won't even see it then. So, cool. Thanks, Rito, but whatever. Next up, I was actually talking about this card on my stream a few days ago. I was actually playing some old school Fiora style control that tries to actually win the game with Fiora. I was playing River Shaper in the deck, and I was like, man, this card feels bad. I really wish they would buff this guy, somehow make him 2 mana or give him extra health. I'm glad they did. They gave him 1 extra health. Again, I can keep talking about it forever and ever and repeat it ad infinitum. 1 health, terrible. 2 health, much better. Now not dying to parlays, Vile Feast, etc., etc. It's great. The problem with River Shaper is just a little too, I don't know how I would say, a little too win more, if that works, I guess. Because usually this guy just turns into Avarosan Sentry, the 2/1 that draws a card when he dies. Because most of the time, a 3-mana 2/2, even on curve on turn 3, is gonna die. He's trading down and dying to 1-drops, so you need extra help. You need like barriers or something to help him out. Or I don't know, give him away, make him elusive somehow with like a Sumpworks map or something. Now, granted, he has seen play, like I said earlier, he's seen play in Fiora decks that try to win with Fiora. The problem is those Fiora decks that tried to win with Fiora played a lot of cards that have been nerfed since then, such as Stand Alone, Deny, and more, honestly. So yeah, I like the buff. I don't think it's going to help out Fiora enough, especially because of this nerf here. Will of Ionia, going to 5 mana. This is terrifying. I've seen some people say, now that Will of Ionia is 5, do you think some people will play Steel Tempest over Will of Ionia? I don't think so. I think control decks will still play Will of Ionia because the ability of Will of Ionia is really good, because it not just bounces the unit back to hand, it removes buffs as well. You can use on your own units as well. Versatility is great. Sure, it's expensive now, but yeah, removing buffs, resetting counters like level up counters is really nice. It's still a good card. 1 extra mana though is a lot of mana, and it does mess up turns a lot, but I think it'll still be played in more control-y decks like Ezreal Karma. This is also a nerf, by the way, to Ezreal Karma, of course. I do think, like, between this and the Shadow Assassin nerf, though, Kinku Elusives is not looking too hot right now. Kinku Elusives usually ran 3 wills. Most decks in the current meta have been running 3 wills if they ran will, it would seem. So this is a little scary too. It's also a little scary if people stop playing Will, because Will of Ionia has always, in my opinion, been kind of a safety valve of a card. You always play it, always kept things from getting too degenerate, like no big Voltroned up units. Now, sure, there's other cards like Vengeance to try and stop that, but it's still a little scary. Let's see what they had to say, though. Will of Ionia is a staple spell that provides Ionia decks a great deal of interaction and utility. Like Shadow Assassin, it's an extremely common card across multiple Ionian strategies, and it is especially powerful in both elusive and control-based Ionia decks. Its ubiquity and efficiency restrict a variety of champions and strats across the meta, and lowering that efficiency should open up more options both for Ionia decks and those playing against them. Now, one thing I noticed when I also saw this nerf, a nerf to Will of Ionia is actually a buff to sea monsters, see? And I love my sea monsters, and playing against sea monsters always felt bad because, or playing sea monsters against Ionia always felt bad because you're always like, when am I going to play this Nautilus? Because if I play Nautilus and they Will of Ionia Nautilus, I pretty much wasted my entire turn. Now, if less Will of Ionias are in the meta, that's great for Nautilus. Anyway, though, what's the next card we got here? Yes, one of the few buffs in the patch, Golden Narwhal. I'll be honest with you, when I first saw the card and was reading this, I didn't even realize it was a buff because I've barely seen the card until my chat called me out and said I'm an idiot. The card used to cost 3 mana and was a 2/4. It's now a 2 mana 2/3 instead of a 3 mana 2/4. Card is still kind of mediocre. I don't really see the kind of deck that wants this card. Even as an aggro card, it still feels kind of bad. Sure, like, it probably will get one hit in if you play it on turn 2. The problem is vulnerable is so bad. A lot of 3-drops and even some 2-drops can kill this guy, and some of them even live. So I'm not really expecting to see Golden Narwhal being played. What have they said? The Narwhal's drawback was too much to overcome for its cost in most decks. This change streamlines it as more of a niche option, and it helps facilitate the accompanying change to Hunting Fleet, which we'll see next. Hunting Fleet. This change, I think, is it's not a big complex change, but I think this change might have more of a impact than Golden Narwhal. It's now a 4 mana 6/6 instead of a 5 mana 7/7. Hunting Fleet was simply too costly and slow for its value proposition, so we're moving it down the curve. That is nice. I think this card, I've said it before when we first saw the card, I think this card actually could see play in a more aggressive Bilgewater deck. But the problem is, at 5 and at 4, it feels like there's just better stuff in all honesty. But on turn 4, you probably have a board, so the Golden Narwhal is not that bad. So you can use like some 3-drop you have or 2-drop to hook in the Narwhal, and if they can't block the fleet, that's 6 damage on turn 4. Sure, Magical Christmas Land and all that, and Hunting Fleet outside of summoning a Narwhal for your opponent. It has no other text, and it's just a vanilla 4 mana 6/6. So maybe, maybe not. I really am not sure about this card. Who knows though? But I do think it is a buff overall, rather than a side grade. Next up though, that's it. That was the last card as for the card changes and updates. Next up though, we got a little bit to talk about the Spirit Blossom event coming up. Look at this board. This is a beautiful board. I honestly love this board. I currently use the Jinx board, but this board, I might have to use this board. Look at it. I am big anime lord. I love my weeb shit. This is weeb as fuck. I'm gonna have to probably buy this. It's fairly expensive too. It is the first epic tier board, as they're saying. The Festival Shrine immerses you in the world of Spirit Blossom with tappable interactive elements and unique reactions to gameplay, and is available for 1,290 coins. That's around 13 USD. I assume like you can tap on like this little shrine with the fox mask here and other such things, but it looks beautiful. I love like the colors and everything, and the sakura petals and the trees and everything. It looks beautiful. I might be buying this. Also, they were talking about this earlier, deck bundles. We're also adding our first deck bundle to the store, Relentless Raiders. Broadside your opponent with its ready-to-play Plunder deck, available in our store for 1,962 coins, prorated for any excess copies based on your existing collection. That's around 20 USD. Obviously this is not for me. Also, we don't know. I don't believe they have shown the deck list anywhere yet. All we know is the champions, the theme, and the playstyle. It's Gangplank Sejuani, which is a real deck. Gangplank Sejuani, I feel, is a solid tier 2 deck at the moment. However, I feel like this is meant for a newer player who just wants to spend money right away. Just like download the game and they're like, I got this $20 bill. I want to spend money now and I want to get competitive now. They can just drop it on this. And I assume they're going to add other bundles too of decks that are somewhat viable. So I like this. It's nice for newer players who want to spend money right away on cards. So sure, doesn't affect me at all. But hey, again, not for me. Next up, though, we also have some Expedition archetype changes. Again, as usual, I don't really play much Expedition. So for all this, whatever for me. Again, like I said, I don't play it, so I don't really feel comfortable giving too much commentary on this. So if you like Expedition, check it out. And as for that should be it. We just got some bug fixes here. That's nice, and that's it, as you can see here at the very end. So yeah, I'm liking these upcoming changes. I feel like Heimerdinger Vi is dead, and I feel like Sejuani is going to become really strong now. Bannerman is going to be fairly good. I think Sea Monsters can get back into tier 2, maybe even sneak into like tier 1. Depending on what actually comes around. I honestly do think Karma Ezreal, while it got nerfed with the Will of Ionia, that's the only nerf it received. Well, along with Shadow Assassin, but whatever about that. I do think Karma Ezreal is still actually a fairly decent deck. But I do think the nerfs and the meta change, especially of Sejuani Misfortune specifically, is popular, will kind of force the deck out, because Ezreal Karma kind of struggles against Sejuani Misfortune, and it's a little bit, in my opinion, bad against like an aggressive scouting Demacia mid Bannerman deck with like Lucians and Misfortunes and Sennas. We'll see though. Who knows? Like, that's how control and combo decks always work. They wait for the rest of the meta to form up, and then they decide how to build their decks. But yeah, I think the changes are good. The few buffs we got, which there are very few, but some buffs and some just reworks in general, they're really nice. Jinx Draven seems like it might actually be a solid tier 2 deck, maybe even tier 1. I don't think it's good enough for tier 1 from what I've seen so far, but I think tier 2 probably. But I think this is going to be a Sejuani meta upcoming, so start packing your Vengeances, your Thermogenic Beams. I'd say Will of Ionias, but Ruinations, I guess, as well. You know, Karina Control, maybe. So who knows? All in all, though, like I said, I've said it like 3 times now. I like the changes. Thank you, Rito. I love what you've done here. I love the game so far. Can't wait to play more when the patch actually comes out. And that's gonna be it for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed today's video, though, for me just talking about the card updates and changes and other such things, and basically gushing over the new board too. That looks really nice. If you did enjoy the video and want to support me, please be sure to leave a like or a comment down below. If you guys want to keep up with the Legends of Runeterra content as well, you make sure you subscribe to the channel as well. And if you want to catch more of me and watch me play some Legends of Runeterra, make sure to go and follow me over at my Twitch TV account, twitch.tv/Zeneton. Anyway, though, with that all said and done, thank you all again once more for watching this video. Hope to see you in the next one. So, bye!